We are in Tryon, North Carolina, my hometown. I grew up in Tryon. Lived here most of my adult life. It was really unique growing up African American in Tryon. You have a lot of folk here that are from wealthy families, so you have the haves and the have-nots. Growing up on the east side of Tryon, I was part of the have-nots. I went to elementary school here, middle school here, and then high school. I actually went into elementary school around 1967 when Tryon was doing the phase integration. I think it had started a few years before then, and basically what Tryon did was, depending on where you lived in Tryon, that determined when you were integrated into the white schools. The year that the east side of town actually integrated into the white schools would have been my first year going to the all-black school. There was kind of shock and dismay at the fact of going to the all-white school, because I was looking forward to following in my older brother and my older sister's footsteps of going to the all-black school. We had heard so much about it in terms of just the sense of community, and then there was that fear of the unknown of going to an all-white school. I have some vague memories of my early years in elementary school. I do remember having a couple white teachers that were really good, that really catered to the black students to make sure that we didn't feel like we were left out or that we were in a strange environment. There were some teachers that you could tell that they were resentful for having to teach black students. I did well in elementary school. I had two white teachers that really kind of saw potential in me. Unfortunately, not everybody had those two teachers that really looked at them as the potential that they had in them. When we first integrated into the school system, it was always the black students that got into trouble. We were labeled as loud and troublemakers. I remember a couple of the white teachers saying that we weren't at the reading level that we should have been. And I remember some of the parents getting involved and saying, well, of course not. You know, they are from the black community where, particularly the older black students that were integrating, they had been given hand-me-down books throughout their school years in the black communities. By the time I got to Tryon High School, I had really established myself as a class leader.
He was in my freshman English class, because I was a real advocate for the black student. I was in the school system when integration first came about. Tryon itself they were in the forefront of integration, but they had made good preparations. However, when these students came, they were so scared. I remember I ran into one little guy. Now, this was a little freshman, and I taught all the freshmen. And he was so scared, and I said, "Don't have to be afraid. I'll see to it that you'll do all right. And here, you're going to my class, so come on." Well, that was one of the few students that I had in that integration process who really couldn't read. Actually, the black school had done a good job, because most of these students, they could read. Some of them weren't on grade level, but so what? The students I'd been teaching, some of them weren't on grade level either.
I guess when I first moved to Tryon, we lived in Landrum, 4 miles apart. I guess Joe was probably one of the first guys that I met. And so that was, I guess me and Joe been friends for 50 years. And we went to school together. We went to kindergarten together, and this building right here is where we graduated from kindergarten. Back in 68 or 69? 68, I guess, because it was, they had just integrated schools, and they would get books from the white school over to the black schools, and they have racial remarks in them, pages torn out, sending all our books to the niggas. You know, it was a mess back in the 60s, early 70s.
But they had to been so afraid, we could have gotten them up to grade level faster. I'll say it improved some. I also have to say that maybe not every teacher was sympathetic to the plight. I just had such a big heart, and these were just students I was supposed to teach. I didn't care where they'd come from or what their level was. A teacher takes them where they are, and it's up to you to take them as far as they can go, as long as you have them.
I studied hard. I was well-mannered and well-behaved in school because my mother was one of those mothers that believe in education. She had a high school degree, but that's as far as she went. So she wanted to make sure that her kids got a better education. And so she was on us all the time about studying hard, following rules, listening to the teacher, and being the best that you can be. My grandmother was often the one that got us up and got us ready for school, because a lot of times my mother would already be gone to her first job. The value of work, the value of education was always instilled in us at an early age. By the time I got to high school, I had several years of being a class president. I actually ran my senior year for Student Government Association president and won that election. And so I really was making a name for myself throughout the whole school year that I was here in Tryon. We had a grandmother who understood wealth creation. As long as I can remember, she always owned property. The house that we're sitting in today has been in my family for almost 100 years now. And so when she died, my mother inherited this property. And my mother was killed by a drunk driver. She had gone to Philadelphia with the church. A whole group of ladies actually were crossing the street to go to dinner. An attorney, after being at a party, was intoxicated, ran a red light and hit her and another lady and killed both of those ladies. My siblings and I inherited this house, but this is the house that I grew up in. This is the only home in Tryon that I've ever known. So by the time I actually went to college, I decided to go to Pfeiffer University, and I was being very strategic when I went to that school. I paid pretty much my full tuition. I did work study. I came home on the weekends and worked at a nursing home. So I did some light construction work. So I have really worked all my life. Quickly realized that even with a bachelor's degree in business administration from Pfeiffer, I still couldn't find the job that really paid a living wage. So I decided to go back to school. I went to Western Carolina University and got a master's in business administration and the MBA. And so I got out, and again, since I had always tutored people, I tutored people in high school, as I mentioned, but also tutored people in college. So it was a natural for me to start looking at education as a profession. So I started looking at colleges, and particularly community colleges, to work with students that had a similar background to where I came from. And I really wanted to work at the community college level, where really students only had to take a placement test, and then professors worked with them to meet them where they are and then to move them where they needed to be. one of the community college, I started what was called the Minority Male Mentoring Program at that particular college at the time. It was a minority male mentoring program throughout the state of North Carolina. It was from a federal crime prevention grant that the state of North Carolina was able to get because the graduation rates and the retention rates for minority males were just horrible when you look throughout the whole United States. But North Carolina community college leaders really looked at the data and said, we've got to do a better job recruiting and retaining particularly minority males. At that point, we set up computer labs to make sure that our minority students had access to computers, had access to the internet. We did Friday night jam sessions where every other Friday we did a potluck where students could come in and just talk about anything that they were going through in their lives that impacted their ability to be successful in college. We used some of the grant money for tutoring. Particularly, we focused really on the remediational courses, the developmental math, the developmental English, where our students of color, and particularly the males, were placing into these remediation courses at a higher rate than their counterparts. So we were able to offer one-on-one tutoring to members of the Minority Student Leadership Academy, as it became named later when we took on female students.